Gods, goddesses, and archetypes. Let's talk about how cultivating a connection to these deities and external personifications of the divine can help us expand our consciousness and cultivate these qualities of consciousness within ourselves. Welcome to the channel, welcome to the temple. My name is Natasha and this is the home of embodied spirituality. So on your spiritual path, you've likely encountered gods, goddesses, and divine archetypes that perhaps you have read about or heard about, or perhaps even directly experienced, but still feel abstract to you. And perhaps there's a little bit of a question as to how you can cultivate a connection to these archetypes or these divine personifications, or indeed what the purpose of them is. And that's what we're going to address today. I'd like to first start by defining what an archetype is through my personal lens. Archetypes are universally accessible templates. So they are aspects of our consciousness that we all contain and we can all connect to. For example, the sun. Even all of the major arcana in the tarot deck, we can consider these archetypes. We can consider the entire tarot archetypal. But if we look at the major arcana, the sun, the devil, the strength card, the high priestess, these are all archetypes. So they are personifications and expressions that we can kind of plug into externally so that we can get a felt sense of those qualities within ourselves. And in order to really be able to understand and harness the power of archetypes, we need to understand that the world is our mirror. So in order for us to be able to connect to an archetype of any kind, including deities, we need to be able to understand that that personification is an external representation of an aspect of our consciousness. So with all of that said, I'd like to focus on specifically gods and goddesses, because for many years on my awakening path, I was hearing about, reading about, being exposed to various gods and goddesses across many different cultures, religions, spiritual streams, mythologies, but their presence still felt somewhat abstract to me. And that was because I was trying to connect with them at a mental level. I was trying to understand their presence through texts and ideologies. And that's, you know, a step towards learning about these archetypes and their presence. But the deeper invitation of a deity, of any kind of personification of the divine, is that we directly experience their presence, their divine emanation, and seek to embody those qualities ourselves. So we can observe that in different cultures, in different spiritual or religious streams, different gods and goddesses take precedence. And that is partly because the supreme creator, the divine, in its absolute form is infinite, and therefore there are infinite and innumerable expressions, infinite and innumerable ways in which God, goddess can present to us here on earth. And there are infinite ways in which we can connect here on earth. So I relate to the different gods and goddesses across different streams and cultures as frequency bridges, that each personification through that specific cultural spiritual lens is giving me a different flavor of the divine, is offering me a slightly different frequency to connect to and cultivate within myself that is going to expand my consciousness, because I am the all-embodied. The I am is the all-embodied. So in my personal experience of working with gods and goddesses, I'm going to say specifically goddesses, because when it's come to the masculine face of God, I've only really had a very, very deep archetypal connection to Shiva and Yeshua. But in terms of God, deity, archetypes, Shiva has, you know, staked his trident in my heart, and I haven't really felt any need or call to journey deeply with any other archetypal masculine energies. But when it comes to the goddess, I have met the goddess, encountered the goddess, and deepen my connection to the goddess through innumerable different faces, innumerable different expressions and deities, from Aphrodite and Venus. And these are, more popular goddess expressions within Roman and Greek mythology. We can understand, when we can connect to those expressions, they're about beauty and love and sensuality. And so her personification, Aphrodite, Venus, they are essentially the same goddess. They are inviting us to cultivate those qualities within ourselves by becoming an embodiment of them and inspiring a response within us. When we see beauty, when we see sensuality, what does it inspire within us? It inspires the same qualities generally. So I've journeyed with those archetypes. I've journeyed with Inanna. I've journeyed with Lilith and Hecate when we're thinking more about the kind of dark goddess archetypes. I've journeyed with Durga, which is a Hindu goddess, the Hindu goddess of empowerment, and she carries for me a very similar frequency to Sekhmet within the Egyptian stream. And I've journeyed with, Mother Mary, even Mary Magdalene, which arguably isn't necessarily a deity, but more of a kind of earthly personification of the Divine Mother. Similarly with Mother Mary. And I've been deepening my ongoing connection to the goddess Tara in her different iterations. The green and white Tara streams of consciousness have been coming to me for many, many years, but she's really been starting to sort of expose more of her true dynamism to me. I experience green Tara as a more dynamic, lively, playful energy, very joyous and abundant. And I experience the white Tara energy as a more Mother Mary energy, purifying, healing. It's almost like a ray that's simply emanating healing. And there's a link with the white Tara energy for me to Kuan Yin. And I know that within the mythology, Kuan Yin is said to have been the mother goddess that actually birthed the green Tara presence through a tear that she shed for humanity's suffering. So I'm just sharing briefly my experience of the goddesses and these sort of many facets and faces. And we've got, also Hathor and Isis, and there are endless, there are innumerable different expressions. And if we're just saying these names, if we're just repeating names, or we're just engaging at the level of the mind, this can all feel quite empty. Sekhmet, Inanna, these are just names. I have nothing to connect to with regards to that name or that personification. And that's because the invitation of these personifications is for us to connect with their qualities that they are embodying. So every god, goddess, archetypal energy, divine archetypal energy, is a model for us. They are modeling qualities of consciousness to us. So when we invite their presence into our field, we are starting to evoke those qualities within us by connecting to them. We could use Yeshua as a good example of this. He is one of the most obviously prevalent divine archetypes on the planet. And when we connect to Yeshua, if we call in his presence now, I invite you to notice what is inspired within you, what qualities, sensations, felt sense experience is elicited within you when you call Jesus or Yeshua into this now moment. Within my field, there is a tremendous robustness, a sense of holding, safety, a precious, innocent, loving presence, grace, discernment, truth. A love and a holding that I think easily brings many of us to tears when we connect to his presence as an embodiment of God consciousness. And so that short exploration is the way in which I invite you to connect to all gods, goddesses, and archetypal energies. Rather than simply trying to ideologically analyze or understand them through text and through reading and through, assimilating a lot of mental, cognitive information and knowledge, the invitation is to actually call that frequency, that aspect of the all, into your own body. So when you feel into a god or a goddess or an archetype, notice what it elicits within you. Notice what it inspires. Notice what it evokes. When we work with certain gods and goddesses, or when they come to us, it's an invitation for us to get stronger and more robust within that aspect of our consciousness. So in the past, I've done 40-day journeys with the goddess Durga Ma, for example. She's a Hindu goddess associated with, a lot of power, the solar plexus, a real protector, fierce protector energy. And that was a very significant journey for me because I've been moving through a very, very intense purification of my solar plexus for a number of years. And now I'm about to start a 40-day journey with goddess Tara, who I've been connecting with for many years, but she is really starting to burgeon in me, her presence. And I feel her calling to me here in Thailand. I feel her calling to me through the land. Obviously, Buddhism has a very strong presence here, and she is a Buddhist bodhisattva. So, when we call a certain god, goddess, divine archetype in, we do so to intentionally strengthen those qualities of consciousness within ourselves. But you may also find that certain gods or goddesses or aspects of the all will choose you. So I have never really sought out different gods and goddesses. I've never really read about different gods and goddesses in any detail at all. Everything that I've really sort of spoken about today in my inner experiences with the goddesses has been through my direct connection to them. So you may sense a divine archetype or a deity coming to you through certain sensations, visualizations, through the elements, through certain words, through certain sort of felt sense experiences, qualities within the heart. They may actually come to you in a certain form. And it's just being mindful about what is that inspiring within you? What qualities are being ignited within you when you connect to that god, goddess, or archetype? And I want to be very clear here that for me, a pure god, goddess, divine archetypal frequency will always be encouraging you to open to the love within you and to strengthen your connection to the divine. Let's use power as an example, okay? Power is an interesting quality of consciousness. We have a very distorted connection to it here on Earth at this time. But there is, of course, a higher expression of power and a divine quality to power that's very important for us to come into connection with in order to be sovereign on our journey. Now, if we're connecting to a god or a goddess or an archetypal energy that's related to power, let's use, for example, Isis. Isis is very much concerned with empowerment, and she's a very fiery goddess. She's got a lot of kind of associated power with her presence, alchemical, transformative power. It's important that when we're connecting with that deity, that we are connecting with the quality of power that is universal and that is concerned with supporting the all rather than serving the self. When we start connecting to divine power, we recognize we're not our bodies, we're not our minds, and we recognize that there is this infinite intelligence that we are, that is working through us, that the witches, the oracles, the great yogis of old knew this power intimately. They were able to harness it. With that amount of power comes a great level of responsibility. And so if we are not well established in the heart and we do not have a pure connection to the divine, and we're strongly driven by the egoic will and nature, we may start to harness the power that we connect to for self-gain, to dominate or oppress others, to manipulate in our favor, which is not serving divine will. That is not the highest expression of power. So I'm just sharing this because I think this is a very important point to bring forwards, that whenever you are connecting to an external personification or a being of any type comes to you, be very, very mindful about the qualities of consciousness that are being elicited within you, and make sure that you are always establishing the Supreme Creator, God, Goddess, as the supreme highest authority. Recognizing that any face, any personification, any divine archetype is an aspect of the all. But for me, it's very important that we recognize the Supreme Creator and the supreme authority of the Creator above all other aspects and facets. That is just my way of working as a priestess. God is front and center to everything I do. And I recognize that in these times of high spiritual warfare, it's really important that we are not outsourcing power or placing other beings in a position of authority above God. Other beings can be supportive. Teams of light can be supportive. Divine archetypes, enlightened masters, certain beings that come into your field, gods, goddesses that come to you, these can be supportive energies. But ultimately, we want to make sure that they are strengthening our connection to the divine and not strengthening our egoic nature or our sense of self, our individual sense of self and will. Very important distinction. And so the ultimate invitation with a god, goddess, or divine archetype is, can you embody these qualities within yourself to become a conduit and a channel for God, Goddess's presence on earth? Can you expand your consciousness beyond your own limited sense of self and your personal identity and the characterizations with that identity to embody a divine quality of consciousness that can infuse and inform life on earth? So this is the power that comes with working with gods, goddesses, or divine archetypes. It's that we choose to elevate our consciousness and we choose to cultivate the virtuous qualities of the divine, the virtuous qualities of consciousness that support humanity to evolve and remember and self-realize. So I hope this has been a helpful introduction or elaboration on your understanding of gods, goddesses, and archetypes. If you've got any questions, please leave them in the comments below, and I may make a second video about this if there's more inspiration to do so. It's been a pleasure and a joy, and I look forward to connecting with you again in the next transmission.